Residents in the Eastern Caribbean prepare for the imminent arrival of Tropical Storm Dorian. Cross-border fires continue to rage in the Amazon rainforest. And demonstrators in France condemn G7 hypocrisy in Biarritz after the World Leaders Summit comes to a close. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Doris Polo. Tropical storm Dorian has formed to the east of the Caribbean and is barreling towards a group of islands called the Lesser Antilles. The center of the storm is expected to pass close to Barbados on Monday night into Tuesday morning before heading towards Puerto Rico. A tropical storm warning is in place for Barbados, St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Dorian is the fourth named tropical system of the 2019 Atlantic hurricane season. Meanwhile, Liat Airlines and Caribbean Airlines have both been forced to cancel numerous flights due to Tropical Storm Dorian. All flights leaving or arriving to the islands that will be most affected have been cancelled for this Monday. This includes all flights to or from Barbados, St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Liat passengers will be allowed to rebook between August 25th to August 28th, with all change fees and fare differences waived within the specified booking period. CAL passengers who intended to travel between August 26th to 28th will be allowed to rebook without change fees as well. Now, correspondent Kareem Smith is on the ground in Barbados with more details.
We're just hours away from the passage of Tropical Storm Dorian here in Barbados, and so far things are relatively calm. We've seen a bit of wind, a few drizzles, and the sky is beginning to get very overcast at this time. And we're also about 2 hours past the national shutdown time away from here, and I've just recently got back from some of the busy streets and some of the towns, and it is still very much pandemonium outside. Boat owners are still trying to get their boats out of the ocean. Supermarkets are very full, gas station lines are backed up, and it's all in preparation for Dorian, which is about 200 miles east-southeast of Barbados, and it's moving westward slowly and coming closer to the island. It's expected to pass just south of the island. Now, yesterday, Prime Minister Mia Mottley gave a extension. She warned that we should take no chances here in Barbados with the passage of this tropical storm. She has asked that people stay out of the streets. She's asked that the Barbados Defense Force, the police force, and all of the other emergency personnel start to get serious about this storm before it comes. And so far, Barbadians have taken that very seriously, but there's some who have been a bit last minute, and they're now trying to just get things in order. We expect to see Dorian passing through at about 7 or 8 p.m., which is about 6 or 7 hours from now. And we'll keep you posted on the passage of Tropical Storm Dorian.
That was Kareem Smith reporting on Tropical Storm Dorian from Bridgetown, Barbados. In other news, thousands of fires in the Amazon rainforest have now been raging for 22 days, with those ravaging the Brazilian Amazon showing no sign of slowing down. The slow response by the Brazilian government has been condemned internationally. Our correspondent Brian Meyer is in the state of Rondônia, which has been devastated by the fires.
I'm in Porto Velho, the capital of the Brazilian state of Rondônia, where smoke has completely engulfed the city. This morning when I woke up, I couldn't even see the Madeira River 200 meters from my hotel. It rained a little bit last night, but it wasn't enough to put out the fires, and it seems as even though the Air Force is here and everything, they're still getting worse. Now, Rondônia is a state that was completely taken over by ranchers and soy farmers over the course of the last 30 years. The political apparatus is completely dominated by the powerful ruralista bloc of lobbyists. And the only land that's left that still has virgin rainforest in the state, basically, are on these indigenous reservations, and that's why they're burning right now. I was speaking with a liberation theology priest who's been working with indigenous groups in the region for 40 years, and he told me that there's a reservation near Porto Velho where the ranchers have come in and they've just divided up the land among themselves. There's about 500 of them, and they're just burning everything down. Now there's 2 tribes that lived deep in the jungle on this reservation that had almost no contact with outsiders. They were still living in their traditional ways. And he tells me that for the last 2 months, nobody's seen them, and he's worried that the ranchers have just killed them all.
Wildfires have restarted in Paraguay's Amazon region not long after authorities had managed to put out a number of them. The president traveled to the Bahia Negra region in order to oversee firefighting efforts. Osvaldo Zayas reports.
A government delegation led by President Mario Abdo Benitez arrived in Bahia Negra, where Paraguay's wetlands are located. The president announced the country will receive aid from the European Union, which offered planes that should arrive in the next few days. Firefighters also arrived in the early hours and traveled to the Tres Gigantes reservation, where fires continue to rage. The Minister for National Emergencies, Joaquin Ruano, announced that the government will use all the tools at its disposal to put out the fires. He also said he spoke to Bolivian President Evo Morales to join forces in this fight. Ruano said they are looking into the causes of the fires, if campesinos burned land or if security protocols weren't followed. Close to 41,000 hectares of forests were affected in the Paraguayan Chaco. Dry winds from the north, on top of an ongoing drought, have restarted wildfires in the Tres Gigantes Forest Reserve. On top of this, the wetland region is increasingly being threatened.
We
are seeing small hotspots appearing throughout Paraguay's wetlands, and conditions are primed for the spread of fires. Humidity is low. There's a lot of dry vegetation and high winds.
Paraguay shares a border with both Bolivia and Brazil, as well as the largest tropical wetland region in the world. In this area, close to 21,000 hectares of forest have already been consumed.
This particular region is called the Palmar Savanna. This ecosystem is usually full of life, but now it's been suffering from a drought, which is being made worse due to the fires.
The Guira Paraguay Association, which is in charge of the Tres Gigantes Forest Reserve, continues to monitor the damage caused to the region.
We are doing daily monitoring of areas that are in high danger of fires. The drought season extends through July, August and September.
Meanwhile, the National Emergency Ministry set up an operation center where authorities are organizing all efforts to put out the growing hotspots.
Still to come, Sudanese women demand parity in decision-making during the country's transitional period. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Another social leader has been killed in Colombia. Danilo Olaya Perdomo was president of the Vereda Alto Cachaya Community Action Board in the municipality of Gigante. The community is asking that the case be investigated. He was shot and killed on Saturday night as he arrived to his rural home. Since the start of 2016, over 700 social leaders have been murdered in Colombia. Our correspondent in Bogota, Manuel Jimenez, has more.
The genocide and murder of social and indigenous leaders, as well as human rights defenders in Colombia, isn't stopping. The latest person to be killed is 70-year-old Danilo Olaya Perdomo. He was president of the Vereda Alto Cachaya Community Action Board in the department of Huila, specifically in the town of Gigante. People in the region have said that this is the second leader killed over the last month. They point to the death of Humberto Trujillo, who was also murdered. He was the president of the Guadalupe Community Action Board, also in the town of Gigante. People are demanding an investigation, and that not only those who pulled the trigger are brought to justice, but also those who organized the murder, those who are behind the killing of social leaders in this part of the country. Social organizations and movements are demanding that the national government act to end the murders of social leaders in this region and all across the country. We have to bear in mind that Colombia is preparing for elections, and the latest report by the Electoral Observer Mission suggests extensive political violence, citing 73 social leaders killed between October 27, 2018 and July 27, 2019. This is a situation that isn't slowing down. and is an explosion point because elections are coming. Many of the victims of this armed conflict are opting for responsibility as a result of the national government's failure to meet its commitments to the peace deal. That deal agreed to create a state regional policy for peace, truth and justice, as well as reparations for the victims of political violence.
That was Manuel Jimenez with that report. 32 environmental activists in Honduras have been sued by the Inversiones Pinares mining company. The activists say this is state-backed persecution for opposing the construction of a mine that would destroy their land. Here's more on their case.
After mining company Inversiones Pinares, who stands accused of damaging private property, sued environmental activists. The activists went to the courts to condemn the charges against them and to warn of attempts on their lives.
Justice in this country is manipulated by the government, by transnational companies, and by organized crime. We don't want to be hunted like animals, because the mining company is using their hitmen to execute us.
Lawyers for the activists assure that members of the Huapinol community haven't committed any crime, and that's why they went to court. But once there, they were ignored, as authorities simply gave them numerous baseless excuses.
The public ministry has sued 32 people from Huanipol for opposing a mining project that contaminates the rivers, which is the only source of water they have. They are being sued for defending the river, life and the environment. The persecutor has claimed that these people are felons.
Over 10 years ago, the indigenous and Garifunas communities are being criminalized for opposing the expropriation of their lands, which are then given to hydroelectric and mining projects, without any sort of dialogues or consultation with inhabitants.
Which are the territories and resources they are handing over? They belong to the indigenous people, to our communities, because they are our lands and we have lived in peace with nature. They say that we are against development because we oppose the destruction of forests, because we oppose mining.
While the activists try to make themselves heard, the Special Rapporteur of the United Nations, Diego Sayan, pointed out mistakes found in the implementation of the criminal justice system during his visit to Honduras.
When you talk about judges' independence, we're not talking about the right of judges to resolve cases according to the law and their own judgment, but of the right of the people, of the population, of having a justice system that provides solutions according to the law when they are involved in a case.
The accused activists will now have to wait for a judge to hear their case, but not before being arrested despite their apparent innocence.
Women in Sudan have demanded a 50% say in all decision-making processes during the country's transitional period. The women say they want a just participation in all government institutions on all levels of power. They also demand that the constitutional declaration by the Sovereign Council should grant women a minimum of 50% seats in all government institutions as opposed to the proposed 40%. The women carried banners reading, "We are half of the population and we deserve half, and we are also technocrats."
Our struggle continues in order to achieve equality, justice, and freedom for women. And therefore, the No to Women Suppression Initiative reinforces its demand for the participation of women in all positions of decision-making within the Alliance for Freedom and Change, and all the transnational period organizations considering it as a basic right.
Still in Sudan, the Sovereign Council has declared a state of emergency in the city of Port Sudan following tribal clashes that left at least 16 people dead on Saturday. Clashes between the Beni Amer and Nuba tribes, which have flared up in the past, were reignited on Wednesday and continued into Saturday. The Eastern Red Sea State acting governor and the head of the National Security Service have also been dismissed. Port Sudan is the country's main sea gateway and is used by South Sudan to export oil.
The Sovereign Council emphasized the neutrality of the military and security services in their dealings with the conflicting parties, ensuring that anyone who is shown to be biased to either side because of affiliation or support will be dealt with decisively. The Council supports social and political solutions which bring coexistence and social peace in the city of Port Sudan and throughout of Sudan. It also emphasized the importance of Port Sudan as the main port for Sudan, stressing that any threats towards Port Sudan are threats to the national security of the state.
And Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has said that drastically cutting military spending and ending Sudan's outcast state status are necessary to save the country's failing economy.
For 30 years we were isolated. We were treated as a pariah state. We want to tell the world we are moving away from sanctions, issues of punishment and all that, to a Sudan that is coming back to the fold of normal nations, contributing to peace, security in our region and further abroad. We want it to be seen as a country that is upholding human rights, good governance, peace, security, at ease with itself and peace and its neighbors. We would like to reach the rest of the world. Please, we left for a while, but we are coming back to the fold of good nations.
After the break, Lebanon calls for the international community to condemn Israeli violation of its sovereignty. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Alternative G7 protesters have condemned the world leaders meeting in the French city of Biarritz for hypocrisy as the G7 summit comes to an end. The protesters highlighted a lack of action to combat inequality, pointing to a future free trade deal between the United States and the United Kingdom that could have dramatic consequences for Britain's socialized health sector. They also said that while they promised action, the world leaders provoked the fires in the Amazon rainforest through neoliberal policies and support for mining and other extraction industries, contributing to the deforestation in the region.
The French President Emmanuel Macron dared to say the following phrase during the G7 summit: "We have to answer the call of the ocean and the forests that are burning. We are Amazonian." Is this leader a true pyromaniac of the planet who claims to want to stop the fires that they themselves provoke? The massive extraction of fossil fuels, deforestation, agro-industry, pollution of all natural aspects, multinational companies are mainly responsible for this ecological disaster, and the G7 pyromaniacs support them.
The funeral of two Lebanese men killed by an Israeli attack in Beirut on Sunday has taken place. Israel has reportedly also dropped bombs on Palestine, Syria and Iraq in the last few days, causing regional tensions to rise dramatically. The Lebanese President Michel Aoun said the Israel strike was a declaration of war and that the country has the right to defend itself. Meanwhile, Lebanon's Prime Minister Saad al-Hariri said that the international community must reject Israel's blatant violation of Lebanese sovereignty. The Secretary General of Hezbollah, Saeed Nasrallah, said on Sunday that the Israeli attack was a breach of the agreement reached by Hezbollah and Israel following a month-long war in 2006. He added that any further drone incursions would be met with force.
What happened last night was an attack with a suicide drone on a target in the southern suburbs of Beirut in Lebanon. This is a breach of the rules of engagement established after August 2006 war, the first clear and significant breach.
Authorities in Hong Kong have once again condemned the acts of violent protesters. Protests continued over the weekend as many vandalized public property, committed arson, have thrown petrol bombs and attacked police officers with homemade weapons.
Last weekend, Hong Kong has suffered again at the hands of radical protesters. In Sunday afternoon, what began as a lawful public order event in Chin Wan quickly turned violent and escalated to reckless destruction of properties and brutal attack on police officers. We have seen an increase in the intensity and extensity of violence used by protesters. Their radical acts have intensified with more dangerous and sometimes deadly weapons used, including bricks, metal poles, long sticks, and petrol bombs.
Now, residents of Hong Kong have also condemned violent protests during the weekend and have expressed support for the police of the Chinese Special Administrative Region.
I would like to say no to these violent acts, and will never support such violence in Hong Kong. As residents, strongly condemn these acts of violence.
I'm deeply saddened and angered by the escalating violence last evening, which destroyed so many things in Hong Kong and had very bad impacts on the entire economy and livelihood here. My heart aches whenever I see our police officers being beaten like that.
Now, staying in China, the country has criticized U.S. President Donald Trump for his latest threats to impose tariffs on $550 billion worth of Chinese goods. The country's foreign ministry says this is a serious violation of the consensus made by the two heads of state in their previous meeting in Osaka, Japan.
The Chinese side resolutely opposes and never accepts the undisguised trade bullying actions and maximum pressure tactics of the U.S. I want to remind the U.S. again that threats and intimidation do not work on China.
A Spanish military plane crashed into the Mediterranean Sea, killing the pilot. The C-101 jet used for training came down near La Manga, Murcia. 3 beaches in the area were closed after wreckage from the crash hit the sand. An investigation has been launched to establish the cause. This is the second plane accident to hit Spain in the past 2 days. On Sunday, at least 7 people were killed in a collision between a helicopter and a light plane. Our correspondent, Eduardo Marin, has more.
The Ministry of Defense has confirmed the death of the pilot who was aboard the plane that crashed off the coast of Murcia. Nonetheless, the final confirmation by the Forensics Department is still needed. The incident occurred at 9:40 in the morning, and the footage spread across social media. Earlier reports by the military said the pilot had managed to escape from the plane before crashing into the water, but even so, he did not manage to survive. Officials are currently working on removing the remains from the plane, which is still in the water. The cause of the accident is still unknown, but the investigation so far suggests the pilot lost control of the plane.
That was Eduardo Marin with that report. The 14th edition of the Caribbean festival known as Carifesta has come to an end, and host Trinidad and Tobago has been hailed for raising the bar of the event. Carifesta saw 19 countries put their art, history, food and culture on full display. The festival themed Connect, Share, Invest ran from August 15th to 26th and cost the Twin Island Republic $43 million. Scores of people from across the country and the Caribbean visited the Grand Market at the Savannah since the start. Speaking at the closing ceremony on Sunday night, Trinidad and Tobago's Minister of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, Dr. Nian Gatsby-Dolly, described the festival as a cultural supernova. This as she officially passed the torch to host Antigua and Barbuda, who will put on the festival in 2021. That brings us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.